Betsy Scott. I'm the director of the Best Practices Research Alliance. Work here for IBACOS out of Pittsburgh, and we have three great people joining us today for our discussion. Together as a group, we address challenges builders are facing head-on, and getting paid for performance is the #1 issue our builders have been saying that they're having in terms of getting the valuation that they should be getting for all of the care and the quality and performance that they're building into their homes. Certainly a key part of that is the appraisal industry as well as underwriters. So we wanted to connect today with Sandy Automatis from the Appraisal Institute and a couple of builders who have had some success in getting better appraisals for their homes. I'm just going to kick things off by introducing you individually to each of our presenters. Sandy is the co-author of the Appraisal Institute's Green and Energy Efficient Addendum. She's got 25 years, actually more than 25 years in real estate appraising. Actually last year she won a prestigious award from the Appraisal Institute that's been named after a pioneer really in appraisal education named William Kennard. So thanks very much for joining us today, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. And our builders to provide their perspective on how to use the appraisal form and how to get better appraisals for your high-performance homes. As I mentioned, we have two builders joining us. Cliff Stahl is the Vice President of Sales for Meritage Homes in their Colorado division. He's got 10 years, actually more than 10 years of experience in housing sales. So he's been talking directly to home buyers for more than 10 years through Meritage and previously through Shea Homes, and helping communicate the value of what those builders have done from a quality, from a feature and performance perspective to his buyers. He also has a little bit of an interesting edge to him. We talked recently as an alliance about the life story research study that came out about trust in home building and how buyers value the home builders that they believe are trustworthy. That came out from Life Story Research. Meritage was one of those builders recognized as leading that front in the top 10 in the country, and Cliff used to work with Life Story Research. So he has a good kind of analytical mind out in the field as he's talking to buyers about what they're looking for in their homes. So he'll be sharing what Meritage Homes has been up to and what success he's had in the Colorado market. Welcome, Cliff.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And Matt Belcher has 30 years in the construction industry, both as a leading builder, developer. Many of you may have read some books that he's written on green housing. And he is the chairman of NAHB's Green Subcommittee. He actually was just in DC last week to talk about high-performance homes and moving the industry forward. He's also leading an education program at the University of Missouri on green building, and they're looking to put together some programming together to share with builders and trade contractors and others in the industry to continually move that ball forward. So thanks very much for joining us today, Matt.
Oh, thank you for asking me. Good morning, everyone.
Great. Now, the reason we're doing this is, as I said, getting paid for performance is a huge issue that our builders are facing. And the addendum came out a couple of years ago. It's a great tool, one of the tools that we'll talk about today to get better valuation for your homes. But as you can imagine, a tool comes out and has been created by the Appraisal Institute. There are different ways to approach the information that you'd include in the form. So Sandy's going to talk a bit today about what the Appraisal Institute intended with use in the form. We'll look at what Matt and what Cliff have been doing in their markets, and then we'll share some additional ideas to even improve valuations further, and then we'll open up the floor to questions for you. So to get things started, would love to get some background information for you from Sandy. It's a bold new world out there, and I know we're all struggling with a consistent way to package the information that you have on the performance in your homes, all the great features that you've been putting into them, and so that in a way that the appraisers can digest that information, consider it when looking at home values, so that what you're getting in your appraised values, what your buyers are getting approved from for a mortgage standpoint, is consistent with what your intent is in the performance you're building into your homes. Before we dive into the form itself, Sandy, can you kick things off by giving us some background information on why the form was created, what the intent is from the Appraisal Institute's perspective?
Sure, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you. The addendum was created because we saw a need to enhance the current form that we're using in the appraisal process for lending, the 1004 form. It has not been brought up to date as far as energy features or green features. So what it left out there was for the appraiser to narratively write the features of a home, and then you take a chance on an underwriter not reading the narrative or not comprehending what was there. And another thought behind it was we need to standardize the communication of the high-performance features. If we're all talking the same language, using the same terms, it becomes second nature to not only appraisers, but to the underwriters and lenders, to builders and salespeople, and to the public. If the public hears too many different terms used and aren't able to identify what those different terms are, it makes it harder for them to understand what they're purchasing. So that was another big objective of ours. The other thing is, if an appraiser doesn't truly have all the details of the features that are included in that home, then it's very difficult for them to pull appropriate or an apples-to-apples comparison to use to accurately appraise the home. So that was another big objective of ours, is give us enough information that we know we have something different here, and be able to try to find sales that would match that specification. And then, of course, the last thing was, we know that the SAVE Act is out there, hasn't passed, but this is a proactive step. If it does pass, we're ready. We're not behind time. So really, those were the objectives for writing the addendum.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to show it to you. I'm going to turn the mouse over to Sandy as well. Okay.
What you see on the screen now is the introduction. We've changed this in March. We revised the addendum. After it's been used for about 18 months and we've received input from various participants, we realized we really need to make a lot of changes to it. So the first change that we made was we needed to clarify what are the limitations or parameters of this data. Some people were leery of using it because they felt like it put too much liability on them. But so we thought, well, we'll start out with some limits of liability and what this form is going to be used for. So that's what you see here on the first page, along with our definition that the appraiser will be using of green building and the 6 elements of green building. As you're probably well aware of, there are a lot of different definitions and a lot of different ideas of green. So we wanted to be clear about what we call green. So that started our starts out the revision of the addendum. Okay, our next section is where we identify the green label, and if your home is not labeled green, doesn't mean we can't value it as a green home, because we're valuing the home, not the label. But if you do have a label on it, in some areas this label is a premium, so we want to be sure to identify what label the home does have. And this section has been moved from the first addendum because, again, we started out with, we had a lot of people saying, let's identify the label first and then move forward in the form. So that's why we moved this section. If your home is not labeled or certified by an organization, then under the additions or the comment section, there's where you can explain the features that your home has that will fall into those 6 elements of green building to give the appraiser a good handle on how green your home might be. As we all know, there are different shades of green that will help the appraiser in identifying appropriate comparables. I want you also to remember that if you are certified green, there should be some documentation that you'll want to provide the appraiser along with the addendum. In other words, a copy of the certificate or the preliminary rating and the worksheet that goes along with this, with the rating. So let's move on down the form here. And you'll see the comment section here is pretty large. Okay. And then right here under the objective of the addendum, it states again that what the objective of the addendum is and about identifying the 6 elements of green building. So we'll move into the energy section. So here we've added quite a few new fields. There's a lot of, as we go forward, there's a lot of new terms coming up, new technology that's building technology that we need to be aware of. You'll see on here the HERS rating and the installation of the installed rating for the installation, which is something new from the old one, and we have a term in the glossary of this addendum to help the appraiser and the users of this addendum understand what we're asking for here. And the envelope tightness, we have a rating there. I know a lot of you use, there are different methods for rating, so I think we've covered most of them on the form. And this you're going to get from your HERS rater or from the person that's doing your third-party certification. So it just kind of walks us through the different features that are out there for high-efficiency homes. It also immediately tells that underwriter or the lender when they get this copy that this is something different. It's not your normal home. We need to hire an appraiser who's had some competency, some education in appraising this type home. So let's move on through windows. You've got daylighting. You've got a lot of features here. Energy Star, you'll notice we changed the appliances. We had a range of it on there, and Energy Star doesn't rate the range. So we took that off. We left an other on there so you can fill in the blank under comments, any additional features that might be there that aren't checkboxed.
So you're thinking there, Sandy, if, dishwashers and refrigerators, yes. If somebody has a washing machine or a dryer or something that receives an Energy Star rating as well, that would be an opportunity for them to click other and then put more information on that in the comments field. Is that the thought?
The washer and dryer is not part of the structure. Neither is the refrigerator either. You can put the washer and dryer in there, but keep in mind that those are going to be looked at as personal property by the lender.
Okay.
So that's why we didn't list those on there. But in a lot of areas, it's standard for all houses to have a refrigerator, even though they're not built in.
Okay.
So that's why it was left.
Okay.
But a good question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we move on down. A lot of the information here you'll see on the HVAC has changed. Parts of the country go by SEER, other parts go by the efficiency rating, so we placed both of those on there. And the heat pump, we've given an efficiency rating there. And a lot of this is just normal specification kind of information, but what we're finding is across the nation, all specifications for high-performance homes don't go into this kind of detail. So that's why we've included it on the addendum. So let's move on down. We've got the energy rating from Energy Star. Again, if you have an Energy Star home and you're going, we'll want the version on there, whether it's existing or proposed. We'll also want you to include a copy of that preliminary certification or the final certification. If the appraiser is doing the appraisal from plans and specs, they'll want the preliminary rating. And then they'll also want on final inspection the final rating. And the home energy, the HES score or the home energy score, if it's on an existing home, if you have that information, it would be a good piece of data to put on there along with any documentation to support it. That's why we have a little checkbox that says certification attached. So the appraiser is going to want to see that those documents that support the ratings that are identified here. So let's move on down. It's important to put the HERS rating in there. You'll notice most of our MLS fields have a HERS rating now. And I've only got in our local MLS a range where we can search for a range. That quite often when I'm looking for houses, I'm going to look for a range that's close to the property that I'm appraising. And it's also great to put on there the monthly energy savings on that rating. And that can be found on your HERS report, or should be on your HERS report from your third-party certifier. So that's going to be the source of where you obtain that information. If it's an existing home and you've tracked, you have an actual tracking of that of the energy provided, it's best to use the existing tracking as opposed to the estimate that was done a year or so back. Again, if you don't have a HERS rating, but you have it is an existing home, you have utility costs. We've added on here average annual utility cost. It says annual, doesn't it? But it's per month. And then tell us what it's based on. And then the number of occupants in the home. We did that because we got a lot of kickback from participants that were saying it wasn't fair to put the average utility cost on there when the lifestyle of the occupant can make a major difference. So we put the number of people living there. That will help us give a better comparison. If you have an infrared photograph, attach it and provide it to the appraiser. Then you have a nice large comment section for additional features that aren't listed on the energy section. So let's move on down through the form.
Okay.
Solar panels. This is another section that has changed quite a bit. We took out 2 columns where we had 4 arrays in there, and we've left 2 arrays for single family or for the solar PV, and we have now a column for describing the solar thermal water heating system. And the solar PV section, which is the first one on your left there, filling that out appropriately will help the appraiser more accurately value that solar PV system. And the inputs here are based on the inputs needed for a discounted cash flow of the energy produced. Some appraisers use their own Excel discounted cash flow. Others will use PV Value Tool, which is a free online tool that they can pull from Sandia Labs. And so that if they fill this out appropriately, the appraiser will have no problem with coming up with a discounted cash flow. And then on the right side, the solar thermal water heating system, the information there will help the appraisers do an FHA appraising, where in their guidelines, they require a secondary heating source for water heating. So this will give the information that is needed on the secondary market for lending purposes. If you're having trouble with the language on the solar PV here, knowing what do they mean here, if you'll go to pvvaluetool.com, there is a manual that goes along with the PV Value Tool, and it will take you through all this language or terminology and give you a better idea of what they mean by these certain fields here. And you'll see where it says source for energy production estimate. That's where we want to know, is this from the installer? Is it a brand new system? So the installer should have an estimate of what the energy produced should be. Or it might be from actual software that the solar PV system has where they can do a printout. So this is an actual history of the energy produced. So that's what we want there under source for energy production. Let's move on through.
Okay.
And again, you'll have a comment section here at the bottom where You can write in information there, additional information about other alternatives such as wind or hydropower, biomass, any other source of renewable energy could be discussed here in this section. Okay. And you'll see there on the left the free tool, the PV value tool that I spoke of. There's the link for it, where you can go there and download that manual that will give you a better explanation of the terminology here. Okay, we'll move on to the site selection here next. We start out with the walk score, and again, this is a forward thought in what might happen with the SAVE Act, where they're going to require in the third stage that a walk score be provided and considered in the debt ratio. So we start out with the score, and that's pretty easy to find with walkscore.com. There's a source right there. You can log on, put your information in there, your address in there, and it'll pop up. A lot of our MLSs now automatically will populate the field for walk score when the listing agent puts the address in. That's not true across the nation, but some of them do. The site information orientation of the site, I know some have been reluctant to fill that out, saying, well, does that mean that my site's not worth as much if it doesn't have the correct orientation? That's not at all what that orientation is there for. But as you all, as builders know, it does affect the design of the home on the site. So just check the box that is appropriate for you. Provide any other explanation that you feel is appropriate to the value of that home or the location of the home on that site. Okay, let's move. Oh, you'll notice on the landscaping, we changed the terminology there because the terminology we have in the original report was vague or widely misunderstood. So we left it with two options: natural landscaping or water efficient landscaping. So most of you can figure out where yours may fall there. Okay. Let's move on to incentives. Now, the incentives category can, if there are actual incentives that you're aware of that will help offset the cost of the green features, please identify them here. The appraiser is aware that they can go to desireusa.org and pull up any incentives that are available. We're not considering incentives that may go to the builder for building a high-efficient home, but we're looking at incentives that may offset cost. Now, where do we apply those? We apply them only in the cost approach. They're not a discount to the sales comparison approach. They're only an offset to the cost in the cost approach. So let's move on forward. And there you have a comment section. And then here you see it says completed by and the title and the date. Originally we intended that anyone could fill this out that had a great deal of information about the home, but we found that people thought only appraisers could fill this out. So the intention was for the builder, third-party certifier, someone who has information about the details to fill it out. Excuse me.
Okay, and there's a good list of resources at the back section of here if there's other information that you'd be looking for to help with the process of filling this out as well. There were a couple of questions that came in, Sandy, that I'm going to scroll back up to kind of where they would fall in the form. Ask you those really quickly, and then we'll move on to get some feedback from Cliff and from Matt from the builder's perspective. The first thing that comes up is, I'm looking for it on the form itself. I know some builders are using this form as, to complete it first and then hand it off to their appraisers, so it's a way to capture the information that you have on the performance features in your home, pre-populate that so that you do some of the background work for the appraiser and they know certain things they need to be looking for when they're appraising your homes. One of the things that you referenced in here was the HERS score and needing the date which the study was conducted. What if a builder is completing this form and submitting it to the appraiser for review before the HERS rating has been taken care of.
Okay, so then what the builder is doing is anticipating what their goal is for the HERS index, I assume.
Yes.
So if that's the case, then where it says date, put the comment, and then down under comment, let the appraiser know that that's the goal that the house is you're hoping to attain on completion. So
Okay.
hopefully that will be verified on final inspection with that HERS index.
Okay. Now, if it's a similar home, say it's a community and about 30 or so homes have been built in that community before to that same specification, and they have historical data, they have HERS ratings from a home with the same features, the same general features, the same property size, would you be able to list in the comment section that HERS score is has been tested on other homes from that builder in the community, and that as a note, and that the HERS score itself will be along, as you said,
Yes.
later date? Would that be a good idea?
That's a good idea, and if you have that HERS rating from I would assume it's probably a model home or the first home built in the community. I understand some of those are like, you may have 7 models and you do one on each model, then you use that each one. So just attach a copy of the original one from the model, and that would help support your estimate there.
Okay, great. The other question that came up was related to specific technology information, checkboxes, and so forth that are available through the form. The statement is that there are other high-efficiency hot water heater options, for example, high-efficiency tank water heaters, storage tank heating by a high-efficiency boiler, etc., that are not listed on the form. How would you suggest if a builder has something like that that they're currently including in their design of their home, including that information, annotating it, and is that something that would the Appraisal Institute consider looking at those fields as new technologies are becoming available, or as these technologies are more prevalent, to add those options as part of the checkboxes in that field?
Yes, we will continue to update this as new technology comes about. As you can see, we've got solar, heat pump, tankless, and coil on there. And what I would suggest is in the comment section under energy efficiency, there's where you want to identify that you have something that's not in the checkbox. So give the specs for it. If you have a web link or something that would give the appraiser more information on that particular technology, that would be helpful. So yeah, the one thing you got to keep in mind is once we update this form, then it goes to all the software vendors for the appraisers, and it takes them a little bit to make the changes, and they don't like to make changes real often. So we're trying to keep this to like every 2 years before we make the revision.
Okay, that makes sense. So even maybe a link to a website or attach a product spec sheet or something to the appraisal form that provides that additional information would be helpful.
Correct.
Okay.